Well, I mean, I'm back on the Diet Coke.
I remember going in your bedroom and it just Diet Coke's lined next to the computer, bro.
Yeah, that's it, man. World of Warcraft and Diet Coke, that's the combo.
Yep.
And I kicked it for a while, and then one day we were at the grocery store, and I was talking to Christy. I'm like, oh, yeah, I used to be so addicted to Diet Coke, and she didn't realize how good it was. I'm like, it's just the most refreshing drink. Like, if I'm outside doing yard work and it's hot out in the summer, there's nothing I want to come into more than a cold Diet Coke. It's
for real, dude.
Something about it.
I don't need water. Like, give me Diet Coke, you know?
Yeah, I want it running through my veins. And then so one day she's like, oh, let's buy some. So we bought some, and then she's like, oh, yeah, this is really good. So she was into it, and then, like, I was back on the wagon, dude. Like, I guess I fell off the wagon, right? I was back on my addiction. And I've been, so now ever since then, probably the last 6 months, I probably drink probably 8 like gas station plastic bottle sizes of Diet Coke a week, you know?
Oh,
like at least.
I thought you were gonna say a day.
Not a day. When I was a kid, it used to be. Legitimately, I probably drank 4 cans of Diet Coke a day.
Oh, I do that still.
Oh, do you do?
Yeah,
okay, so you're still on it.
Here's the thing. When I'm okay, do you want to start?
Well, yeah, we're starting already.
We're just randomly talking about Diet Coke. We got some topics, but okay. When I'm working, sometimes, like I'll have. So usually here's how my work goes in the morning. So I have a take-home car now. So what I do is I get that ready, leave the house, go to the PD, park outside, walk in. I plug in my body camera so it's charged for whenever my first call comes out. Walk upstairs, and I go to the vending machine, and I get a Monster out of there. Get a Monster, go back, check my emails, see whatever I need to get done, any follow-ups, and then I chill there just for a little bit to kind of like wake up, right? Mm-hmm. It's 6 a.m., so it's even before that. I'm usually in the building by no later than 5:30.
Put your mic in front of your mouth. Yeah.
By no later than 5:30. So anyway, with that being said, after the fact, wake up after roll calls at 9 a.m. After that, I go to the gas station. I get a 20-ounce Diet Coke. It usually lasts me till about lunch. I buy another one for lunch. I drink that, and I might buy a third one.
Damn.
On my way, like about an hour before I go, my shift's done.
You're getting 60 ounces. That's almost a gallon of Diet Coke, isn't it? Isn't a gallon 64 ounces?
Is it?
I think so. Is that not, maybe that's not right? I wish I could look it up right now.
No, I thought a gallon was like 120.
Oh, okay. So half a gallon. You're drinking half a gallon of fucking Diet Coke a day? That's not good, dude. What?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just about. It's not all the time, but at least 40 ounces a day minimum.
Wow. Okay. Well, you got me. I thought I was making a confession here, but
no.
I mean, you're just just guzzling it down, man.
No. Okay. Wow. All right. Let's chat about Chicago because we've kind of been dancing around this topic, and I think it's interesting, and I want to hear like the inner rumblings of how like your debt collection and stuff work. But let's start off with, we kind of touched on this with your friend Ben when he was on our podcast, but what initially brought you out to Chicago from Minnesota? Like, what was kind of the...
Yeah, so I was 18 at the time. Yep. So I just graduated high school, and I was a debt collector, but my main ambition at the time was I was also a stand-up comedian for 2 years at that point. So I started when I was 16. I've been hitting the open mics, and I was making a little bit of money. And then but what was going on is I had started a full-time job as a debt collector. I didn't go to college, and because I was trying to make comedy work, but I needed to make some money. So my plan was save up money, and then I'd move somewhere else because I was staying with my parents for no rent. So one guy who was a comedian, and he was a bartender at a lot of the comedy clubs, but then during the day he was a debt collector, and then at night he would go bartend the comedy clubs, and then he'd hop on stage, and he'd get a lot of stage time that way. His name was Robert, and really good guy. He's like one of the people that I actually liked in the comedy scene. And he's like, I was telling him my situation. I was working at a pizza place or whatever, and he's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm a debt collector, and there's another comedian who worked with him at the same company, and he's like, you can come and work for us. I can hook you up with a job. So he ended up doing that. I got the job, and I kind of respected these guys whenever they were in the comedy scene, but then when I showed up to the job, I quickly realized that these people were not respected in the professional world. Like, these people would be falling asleep at their desks, like, just the worst employees. They're just like losers, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's weird to see people. It's almost like seeing a teacher at a grocery store or something. Like, you see them out of their element, and you just have a different view on them. This is the same thing. Seeing a comedian outside of a comedy club is kind of a sad thing. Like, you see how some of these people live, and it's just like depressing.
So this was while you were still in Minnesota.
Yeah. I was 18 in Minnesota. So then I was doing that for a while, but the problem was that it's hard to focus on comedy when you're working 40 hours a week at a call center. It's just the most soul-sucking job that you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
It's hard to then be creative and like take time out of your day. It's easy to be creative and stuff and be like entrepreneurial when you don't have anything to do all day, right?
Yeah.
So after that, I was like starting to lose steam on comedy a little bit, and like my ambitions were sort of changing, and I was like trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. It's very difficult for me to make that decision like in a sober way when I have like pretty much everybody that I know sees me as like a comedian. So everybody in my family, every time I went to a family gathering, they would
Let's hear a joke.
Yeah, exactly. They'd ask about how comedy's going and stuff, and then all like my closest friends at the time now were all comedians, and so I'd be going to hang out with them, and you kind of got to like save face. So it'd be hard for me just to quit one day and just say, oh, I'm not going to show up today. So I needed to go somewhere by myself to figure out what I wanted to do. So I decided to go to Chicago. In Chicago, there's a place called Second City, which is like as close as you can get to a college for performance arts, right? And I wanted to go there. So I go to Chicago, and I check this place out. It was pretty cool, you know. It was like a 3-story building, pretty big place. They have various different stages. They have improv classes, which is like the main thing, you know, like famously like Tina Fey and a bunch of SNL people went through there, right, doing improv. I thought improv was gay. I wasn't going to do that, right?
Not that there's anything wrong with gay people, but yeah, continue.
But yeah, there's a place for them, and that's the improv stage. Okay. I cannot see myself doing improv. I was doing stand-up, so I'd write jokes, but I wasn't thinking on my feet on stage. I like to prepare for things. I'm not good just off the top of my head. And so I would take like writing classes there, though, and like video production classes. Mm-hmm. And like that was fine for a while. But it was also very difficult in Chicago to go to these open mics because I can't just drive there. Like, you have to get on the train and like go all the way across. Now it takes like hours of commuting to get to some of these open mics when you're considering there and back. And for whatever reason, like they weren't as accepting for me being under 21 doing comedy there. Like I was at 16, I was like hanging out in bars and stuff around here, but there they make me like sit outside and only let me into the stage room whenever it was my time to go on because I was too young to drink or whatever. It's just like weird. It wasn't quite as fun. But I knew that it was time for me to stop doing comedy whenever my grandpa told me that he knew a guy somehow through business that was like a talent agent, and he'd be coming to Chicago soon, and he represented different comedians. And he was interested in meeting with me for coffee. Like classic, like big break that you're hoping for. Yeah. Like, this is it, dude, you know? He's going to put me on stage and like I'm in, right? And I was not excited for that meeting at all. And then that's when I realized that I really, like if I wasn't willing to pursue it, like if that wasn't the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me, then I was not going to make it because you got to make your way through some shitty times, even after you're getting paid work. I mean, you're practically living out of your car, driving across the country, like staying in shitty like condos with some creepy ass comedians. Like, you got to go through some tough stuff to make it to really where you want to be. And if I wasn't even willing to do the fun part of like taking my next step in the career, then it probably wasn't for me. So then the rest of my time there, I was a debt collector. Yeah. But I would basically just have a midlife crisis every year. Like right around April, the busy season, I would just like try to find anything else to do, but I couldn't figure it out, man. That job sucked.
So, what do you think? I mean, what do you think was the actual driving factor of being like, I Because you had the connection, it sounded like. So what was it for you where you're like, this comedy thing is just not, it's not my thing? Like, what do you think?
Well, I think one thing is that I really was so I think that it was more about the lifestyle, and it was the chance to like make it in life, not having to go to college. Like,
okay. I do remember that was a pretty big thing with you, like in high school. You're like, I don't think I'm going to college or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, and I think everybody now is catching on to the fact that college is a little, maybe not a scam, but it's a little too ingrained in the system now, where like a lot of people go to college and they still don't make it, right? Mm-hmm. So people are, they have a little bit more wisdom with that decision, and I think more people see it as a good path to not go to college. Whereas whenever I was in high school, I graduated in 2015. I remember either my senior year or my junior year, I was in one of the classes and they were asking everybody, who here is going to college? Raise your hand. Every single person raised their hand, including me, because I wasn't going to be the only person to not raise my hand, right? But like I was like, wow, like everybody eagerly raised their hand, and I'm like, oh, okay, me too. And so I was like really an odd one out, and it was kind of uncomfortable talking about that. And that's the age where every time you go to Thanksgiving, everyone's like, oh, what are you going to do? And I'd make up that I want to go be a psychologist or something like that. And but I couldn't see myself doing that. And since I was 13, I kind of knew that was going to be the case. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. But then we were watching Dane Cook back in the day. Remember that shit?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so like we just sit there. Yeah. Anytime you came over to my house, we'd watch Dane Cook videos, and that shit was just amazing. And then I would watch more like documentaries, and I would watch more comedians and stuff on Netflix. And I would hear a lot about like the 80s, like the big comedy boom. And like that's sort of how you imagine is going to be like doing comedy, but it's a little bit different now. It's much more saturated, and it's like a little bit of a different vibe, you know. When you're watching, like if I was in LA, I could go to open mics and I might run into like famous people there going on the same stage as I'm going on to, you know. And so there's really people to look up to, but there's nobody to look up to in Minneapolis. Like, there's just not a lot of cool like comics that are famous or really making it, and so it's not really like a cool experience, you know. Like I'd be embarrassed to bring anybody that I knew to an open mic. Like it was just it is lame, right? And so and once I graduated high school, now I was out of that environment. I was more on my own, and it was like I was sort of able to be my own person. And I was now working in an office, which was like from the outside decently respectable, even though like I hated the job. I wasn't working at McDonald's, or like wasn't a complete loser. I was making probably more money than anybody else my age. And I knew people who were sitting next to me doing my same job that were making $100,000. So like I was starting to see there was other ways to do it. And I felt more free now that I was on my way to moving out of my parents' house. I was out at 18, living in an apartment, doing just fine for myself. And so I no longer felt like I needed to come up with a way to make it, because I felt like I had found that, or at least I could see that it was possible, not doing comedy. And I can do it living in my own place and not having to live out of my car, driving across the country, like suffering, basically. And so that need no longer was there. And I think that was a big part of it. And I think that going on to later on in my life, when I do real estate and things like that, I think that, you know, I was making a lot of money there, and I was living basically now I live the life that I wanted to live. And I didn't see any path there except for comedy, but I know that everything that I wanted out of stand-up, I was able to get that out of running my own real estate business and things like that. And ultimately I ended up where I wanted to be. I'd be like, I wouldn't be disappointed in where I ended up. But I can say with certainty that looking at the people that I know that still do comedy and are like as successful as possible probably, and they're the ones that are, you know, they're sharing a one-bedroom apartment with some roommate who probably also does comedy, and just kind of living like they're 27, where I have a family and I'm married and I'm a homeowner and I have a good career. They're making probably $25,000 doing comedy, but like they have no way of doing any of these things that I take pride in my life. And so I don't think I would have been happy if I continued down that path. So I also want to say,
you could have hit it big.
Maybe, but I mean, not if I wasn't that passionate about it. I mean, at the end of the day, like you need that, you really got to want it in order to push through all that bullshit. Like the people that I know that are, somewhat successful or not successful that are still doing it, like it's crazy how their passion is able just to like have them plow forward no matter how much it fucking sucks. Like Ben, he's still doing it. And he's doing the same shit that we were doing 10 years ago. And it's like, I can't even imagine doing that. And so there's a certain amount of respectability there. Like, I obviously didn't have the passion for it. I think I like the business aspect of it. Because I was able to get paid and stuff at that time and make those relationships. And I think that's what allowed me to be successful now in the businesses that I'm in now. I'm just not doing it in comedy.
What were you going to say? I didn't mean to cut you off. You're going to say, and I want to say this.
Oh, I think that I would have been able to be successful just because of the fact that I was able to do the relationship part of it. Like, I think honestly, like if I was a comedy agent, that's probably what I belong in. Like I should be setting Ben up with shows, because I was able to find those people that are wanting to put me on and, give me money. And like, I was able to almost establish if I wanted to, I would have had an agent. Like, so these things that I think a lot of comedians, they're funny and they're passionate about the art, but they don't have that networking skill, but I had the opposite. And so, yeah, maybe that's what I should be doing, be a comedy agent.
Interesting. So we go into the debt collecting because I've always found this very interesting. Like, I'm a huge Dave Ramsey guy.
Yeah.
Like, I've never missed a payment in my entire life. Like, that's just how I am, right? And, when for you, other than seeing people sleep at their job, when for you was it like, what did I sign myself up for type of thought? Like what kind of people are these people? Like, were you in training one day and they're like, look, ma'am, if you give us your finger, we'll take $30,000 off of what you owe us. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't think that it was what we were doing to people that really turned me off. It was just more about the work itself. Like, debt collecting is one of those things where there was a glory days of debt collecting, and you would hear about it. So start off what I liked about debt collecting. So number one, being 18 and working in an office when you thought that you were destined for the drive-through was, great. Showing up in business casual and everything, and that was nice. And then the people were great. I met some awesome, hilarious people in debt collecting. Like, I hear about my wife who works essentially in a call center, and, the environment there would just be, so monotonous. The only saving grace of the debt collecting is that you're sitting there just talking shit with the people around you. It's just a company full of scumbags. But, they're all hilarious. And you're just, talking shit about the people that are calling in. Like, if you got a hold of a crazy person on the phone who's just, yelling at you or just, doing it, I don't know. People just do funny things when you're harassing them for money. When they're getting calls from debt collectors all day, they come up with funny shit to do to you. But if you get someone that's just, yelling at you or something, you'll put the phone down and put it on speaker so everyone can listen in and just laugh, and you can just sit there and, when you're not on a call, talk to the other person. You can talk about anything. There was HR, but it was not you could just talk about pretty much anything. The people were cool, right? And I'd hang out with them outside of work and stuff. So that was a saving grace. And these people were making a lot of money. So, I remember my first manager, dude, Kevin O'Mara. I remember his name.
Kevin O'Mara, dude. Shout out. Baby.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin O'Mara. And there's always,
he's making, $300 a year,
definitely six figures. Okay, so there's at every company you've got the dregs who is it's a revolving door. These debt collection, they'll take literally anybody off the street. If you are homeless and you can't get hired somewhere, go apply to debt collection company.
They'll take you, dude.
They'll ask you questions. It's just all superficial. You could show up in shorts and sandals and they'll be like, when can you start? Okay. But they'll have people that they're just there to make the calls, just to get the KPIs done to make the clients happy. We got asses in the seats and they're going through the inventory. But then they'll never make commission. They'll get their base pay, but you have your goal every month, and how it works is so you have a goal. Let's say it's $4,000, right? That's your goal for the month. What that means is of collecting debt. So if you collect $100 of debt, depending on how old it is, a different percentage will go towards your goal. So you'll collect $100. You are going to make $4,000 for the company. If it's a brand new debt, like it was just charged off, that's going to be easier to collect. And, you're the first agency that has been placed with. A lot of that's going to be people that just forgot to make their payment. Like a lot of those people are going to pay right away. It's easier to collect. Well, you might only get 40% of that going towards your goal of 4,000 because the company doesn't get as much of that, right? But if you're like the fifth or sixth agency that has been through, like it's been passed around and picked apart, like this is the stuff that's been hard to collect and no one's been able to do it. If you can collect that, well, maybe 80%, 90% of that will go towards your goal. So like you kind of get to choose. Do I want to call the old stuff? Like some guys that be like, some guys will call like the new balances, but they're really small amounts, but they just like, they'll get 10 of those a day, but then some people, they'll go for like the really old debt that maybe it's $8,000, and you're not going to get one every day. But if you get one, then you hit your goal in one day, right? Once you hit that goal, then you start making commission. So the more you make over your goal, the more commission you get. And, most people won't make any commission. These people that just need a job and then they're there for the hourly, right? If you're there for the hourly, you don't make the commission. But then the people that have been doing this for 20 years, they're the career debt collectors or the managers and stuff. And, they still jump around to different companies because every once in a while a guy will he'll break off, start his own company, and then he'll take all his friends with him. But they've all worked with each other for years. Like it's one of those things where someone will walk in and like, oh, we used to work together 5 years ago, But these people make $100,000 a year and like the company would give them the good accounts and stuff and be like, oh, hey, like this looks like a good one. Call this guy, they'll set him up and make some money. And so you can see that as like a young guy and you're like, oh, you can really make some money here. But you talk to them about how it used to be and they'll tell you about like back in the 80s and 90s, you used to be able to say anything. Like my one supervisor, he'd be like, one day I called a guy and I'm like, so, how can you pay this off? Like, are you going to pay it in full or whatever? And he's like, oh, I got to talk to my wife about it. He's like, oh, I thought I was talking to the man of the house.
Oh my God.
And he got pissed. Now it's so the worst part about debt collecting is now, if I could just say anything, that'd be great. But it's so scripted. Like in order to start the call, before you can even say who you are, I got to be like, I'll call and be like, hey, Ryan, this is Zach. How's it going? Before I begin, could you verify the last four of your social? What would you say? No. Would you be like, oh, yeah, sure. It's right, exactly. Like, you're not going to give. Oh, yeah. No. Like, who is that? Yeah, at the very least, you would say, who's calling?
I got a story for that.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, last month, I get a call from some random, 800 number, right? Let it go through. Leaves me a voicemail. So, I look at the voicemail, and it's collections for one of my car loans. So, I'm like, okay. So, I call the number, and obviously for privacy reasons, I'm not going to say what business and stuff like that for scam and fraud. But this business calls, or I call the business, and they're like, this is collections for so-and-so. I'm like, okay, you guys just called me and said I had a missed payment on one of my cars. And they're like, okay, what's your first and last name? Gave them that. All right, phone number, and what's the last four of your social? And I said, I'm going to pass. I said, who can I call can I call the actual business number first to verify that it's you guys? She's like, absolutely. They'll just direct it to us again, but if that's what you want to do. So that's what I did. I called them. Took longer, but I verified that it was them. So same chick actually answered the phone. And I'm like, yep, okay, here's my info. Okay? She's like, yeah. She's like, looks like you missed January's payment for one of your cars. And I said, are you sure you have the right person? And she's like, yes. I said, I've never missed a payment in my entire life. I said, in fact, I have all the receipts that I make all my payments on. I can tell you what day it happened, what time it happened within the hour. And she kind of stops for a second, and she's like, okay, hold on a second. So literally 45 minutes I'm on the phone, like on wait, playing some elevator music in the background. Finally, she comes back, and she's like, okay, we called another branch of the company. It looks like what happened was you made January's payment too early.
Oh, okay.
They assumed it was a principal payment.
Yeah.
And therefore, you never technically made January's payment.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, well, you're going to reverse that because I usually specify when it's a principal payment. And not to mention, it was like 40 days.
Yeah.
It was in December when I made January's payment. So I'm like, I don't know how early or how, what that is for your computer system. And she's like, no, we'll get it fixed. Don't worry about it. It's not a hit on your credit or anything like that. It's within 30 days anyway. And I'm like, well, it's not a late payment. And I'll tell you that right now because I paid. And I said, on my receipt, there is interest. So how is it a principal payment if there's interest? And I kind of started to get heated a little bit. She's like, we're good. She's like, we'll fix it in our system. You're fine. Your next payment's in February. So obviously I paid those as well. But stuff like that, dude, like that's why, like, Carly laughs at me, but dude, I keep all my payments, bro. I'm like, I ain't playing this game, dude. I keep all my receipts, you name it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's important. And I'll touch on something that the reason why that's good. Yeah. But like, so you did the right thing by, reaching out to that person. But like, that's, as the debt collector, like, imagine how hard it is to even get somebody on the phone, like whether they want to pay or not. Because sometimes if you can get through this barrier, they'll just say, oh, I forgot to pay that. I'll pay right away. Sure. But the amount of time you spend on the phone with these people, trying to like just get them to like get through this. So you have to answer the phone. They answer the phone. You have to verify the last four of their social. Depending on what you're collecting, some clients would be like, you have to get the last four of the social and their date of birth. Some will say either their date of birth or their address or the last four. Like, they all have different rules. But it's all personal information. People don't want to give that stuff away, understandably. But even if they ask who's calling, most of the time you can't even tell them who it is. Like, oh, this is Zach. And the reason for that is because you can't disclose that you're a debt collector related to like that person's name. Like, if you disclose to the wrong person that this person has debt, that's very illegal. Okay, it's a very huge issue.
It's like a privacy issue.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. Okay. So like, for you to say like, oh, I'm calling for Ryan, I'm a debt collector, like, a major issue, right? Okay. And there's people out there who make a living on just they basically like just fuck with debt collectors so much that until one of them inevitably messes up, and then they'll sue them. Like, they're called like litigious people, right? So in these companies, they're all called like something that's obviously a debt collector. Like, Financial Recovery Services was the first company I worked for. Yeah. And so you can't say I'm from Financial Recovery Services because it's obviously a debt collector. So you have to say, oh, I'm from FRS. And they'd be like, what does that stand for? Well, I can't say. It's just FRS. And so it's just like this huge obstacle. If they verify the last four, then you have to read them their Miranda rights.
Oh my!
So you have to be like, this is an attempt to collect a debt by a licensed debt collector. Any information obtained will be used for that purpose. And then you have to read like any other disclosures the clients want. So then there's like a script they want you to follow. So they're like, you got to say, you owe this much for this. How would you like to pay in full today? And then even if they're on a payment plan and you're just calling to get a payment, you got to say, how would you like to pay in full today? And like, well, I'm not. We're on a payment plan. Okay, I just had to say that. And now they have like AI that will transcribe your calls, and it'll like give a score. And if you don't reach at least 80% matching the words, then you get docked on your commission or whatever, right? Yeah. So it's just like super regimented. If it was just something where like, hey, collect the debt by any means necessary, I'd be knocking on their door. I'd be doing whatever. I'd like kidnap their cat, whatever I got to do. But like, it's so difficult to just have the conversation. You can't talk to people like a human, right? And so that's what just made it like soul sucking. And you would hear like a lot of sob stories and stuff, but I don't know. Like, I didn't really feel bad for the people, just because like you would look at their credit reports, bro. That was the best part of the job, was looking at people's credit reports and skip tracing. So looking at credit reports, you get to see everything that they owe, and then like some people would really use that to their advantage. Like if somebody owed a debt and they saw on the credit report that they had like a really nice car or whatever with like some equity on it. So they see like, okay, here's how much they owe. Here's how much the car is probably worth. Someone's like, oh, I can't pay right now. They're like, oh, well, how about that car in your driveway, the 2005 Honda Civic? Like, looks like that's worth about $8,000, and you only owe $4,000. Why not sell that? And people are like, what the fuck? Like, how does this person know that? But everything's on the credit report. And then we also have an access to a skip tracing system. So you can type in their social and it'll pull up all of everything about them. Like if you are afraid that your information is out there somewhere and like you're trying to buy all these services that YouTubers will push to like wipe your information's out there. Like you don't have to worry about your information being stolen because like I had access to all of it. And so you type in their social and it would be their phone numbers, every phone number they ever had, every address they ever lived at, their associates, their family. And then I can click on any of those people and I can get all that same information about them as well. And so what I would do is like, just to keep myself entertained, I would like probably spend too much time skip tracing accounts that weren't worth the time. But if somebody didn't want to pay or like they're hanging up on me or they're fucking with me, because like people that get calls all day from debt collectors, they'll just try to like waste your time. Like they'll call and they'll just like try to keep you on the phone as long as possible and just like fuck with you. So I'd fuck with them back. I would like find their mom's information and then I would call their mom and I would just keep calling their mom all the time. And once they say it's the wrong number, then you can't call. But like, of course the mom's going to get worried. When I lived in Chicago, I was collecting on court debt and it would be like traffic tickets, and Las Vegas was the client. And I got to say that I was calling from the Las Vegas Justice Court. It was like we're outsourced, but I was pretending like I was actually there. And they put warrants out for people on any traffic violation. So people would owe like $140 for a speeding ticket, and they'd have a warrant out for their arrest because they didn't pay it. And so I would call people if they hung up on me or they said, go fuck yourself. I would call their mom and I would leave a message. I'd be like, oh yeah, this is Zach calling from the Las Vegas Justice Court. I'm calling for, so-and-so. There's a warrant out for your arrest. Call me back. And as long as the voicemail message didn't say the wrong name, like if it was just the generic, oh, please leave a message, you're calling this number, then I can assume, even though I know it's not their number, I could assume it is, and then I would leave that message for them. So their mom would get a message saying, oh, there's a warrant out for your son's arrest, and then they would call the son, and then I get a call back from that guy. I'm like, oh, now you want to talk, huh? And that's how I collected that. So that shit was fun. Like I said, it was a company full of scumbags. I was a scumbag, and that was the fun part about it. But it was soul sucking because you had to make at least 200 calls a day. You had to make at least 10 contacts and have 10 conversations a day. And if you weren't meeting that goal, then they were just on your ass all the time. And it's just like...
But would they really fire you if they need people that bad?
People will get fired. Okay. But at the very least, like, it's just a pain to, like, every week... your supervisor calls you up and they're like, okay, we got to listen to some calls. And like, I wouldn't follow the script. Like I would just kind of go off. I would just try, cause I feel like it's easier to collect if you just talk to them like a human. And so I'd be like messing up on the script all the time. And I just like wouldn't be as aggressive as I need to be. And so like just to sit there and listen to the calls and like listen to how dumb you sound on the phone. Like why would anybody give me money? Like I can't believe this guy even answered the phone. Yeah, I sound like a kid on the phone. And it just was like, it's a horrible experience. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's debt collecting.
So with Dave Ramsey, right? Because a lot of times, you know who Dave Ramsey is.
Oh yeah, dude.
He has his own like podcast show as well, and he does he's like a self-made millionaire and all this other stuff. Well, in his trainings, a lot of times he talks about, if you are in debt and debt collection's calling you, he said, make a deal with them that day. So he's like, let's say you owe $2,000 and you're like, you know what, I can give you $1,400 a day in cash and settle the debt.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, dude. So it's all about,
just wipe it
out. Yeah, bro. That's right. So like, that's a big thing, settlements. So now one thing, so really quick, another thing that really made it more difficult than it should be is that you can't make threats about like the credit unless you like 100% intend and have the ability to like put it on their credit, you can't threaten them with like, this is going to be bad in your credit. Like that's illegal, right? But you can kind of rely on that being the case, because it is the case, and you just hope that they understand and care about that. But you definitely can settle the debt. So it's all a negotiation. So you call the people, you ask for it in full, it's due in full. But you do have a certain allowance. So every different product that came in, like every client, you would have different allowance for how low you can take a settlement. So again, if it's like a brand new account, then maybe you can settle at 90%. Okay, just to get it done. But it's brand new, so you should be able to collect more of it. But if it's, a 5-year-old debt or 10-year-old debt, or it's been like, if it's already fallen off their credit report, right? Because it's been 7 years. Now there's literally no incentive for you to pay a debt if it's more than 7 years old. If it's not on your credit report, okay? This is very fucking important for anybody listening to this, okay?
The tips, okay.
This is major. You can screw yourself over by having the right intentions here. If it is not in your credit report because it's been over 7 years, basically, like, I don't think they can sue you anymore, right? I don't know about that for sure, but it's no longer affecting your credit. So, like, it's not going to stop you from buying a house. Like, nobody really sees any of that. It's probably, that's what it is. It's past the statute of limitations, right? So the statute of limitations, you can't get sued anymore, and it's not on your credit, okay? No negative consequence for that being out there at all. If you acknowledge the debt, if you tell me when I call you, like, if you agree to pay it, say, oh yeah, I'll pay it, or like you acknowledge that you owe it, then that will reset.
No.
Or like they'll pay like $20 just to get you off the phone.
And that resets it.
Another 7 years, baby.
Dude.
They're fucked.
So dude, you know what that reminds me of is we have people, so like in the state as far as criminally, if you get a DWI, it goes by 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. So if you get a DWI, your clock starts for 10 years. So if you get another one within 10 years, and it has to be a conviction, it's not just charge, right? If you get another one in 10 years, that's an aggravating factor, meaning your next DWI is going to automatically be a worser offense.
Yeah.
Okay? So we have had incidents where people will be at like 9 years and 3 months, like when they get their second one.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude.
You're so close.
Yeah, you're so close, man. And so, yeah, that's interesting. But what people will do is they'll try to they'll do that, but and they'll screw themselves over in that way. So most of the time I'll just take the settlement. If somebody offers to pay settlement, I'm just going to go for it. You can be as tough as you want or whatever. They want you to try to get the full amount, but I'll just say whatever, we'll settle. Now you could ask for a little bit of some leeway, because the managers, the bosses know, if you're on average, you're collecting 95% of the balance, that maybe you can go a little bit lower on a big one, to get it or whatever. So you can always say, I'll talk to my manager and try to get it done, right? And a lot of times you could. But if it's a really old debt, it's maybe 5-6 years old, but it's still on your credit or whatever, you got to get it paid off. A lot of times, we were taking settlements as low as 30% on some accounts. So you can save a shitload of money. If you owe debt collectors, you really can talk that stuff down. Now it depends on who you get, because you got the same person twice, right? And that wasn't a coincidence. It's because once you answer the phone and you get that person to verify, now it's your account. Okay. So now you take it in, now it's yours. Yeah. And so if somebody else answered that call, they got to send it back to you because that's Zach's account, right? So you'll get the same person every single time. Now, if you get someone that's really seasoned, then they might, and they and they did their job, skip tracing, because a lot of times this person's got money, or you can see, man, we're so fucking sneaky, bro. So you go on their credit report, and you would see on the inquiry line that they got a bunch of mortgage inquiries. This person's looking for a house. That's why they're calling now. Okay. They didn't just decide one day they want to pay their debt off. It's because their loan officer told them you got to pay this off. Otherwise, you're not going to get a house, right? So you know their hand. And so even though I can settle, not gonna. Not for you. Yeah. And I'll put in the notes, this guy needs a car, you're supposed to send the account on to the person that owns it, but
there'll be situations where this person's going to pay. They got money. They got to pay. You got them by the balls. It's just a matter of time. Then some noob answers the phone and like doesn't see it's your account. It's their first day on the floor or something. And then they'll like talk to the person. They think it's their account because they didn't see that you're on it. And then like they'll settle for like 60% or something because they don't know all the details. You'd be like fucking pissed because like you'd be like, dude, this person just lost me like $1,000. It could literally, depending on how big the balance is, I mean, that could be hundreds of dollars they just took out of your pocket. But it's like, depending on what they know about you, it's going to be hard. But if they're not working with you, you can either talk to a manager and maybe they'll get it done, or just talk to someone else. Just be like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I'm pretty sure they have to send it to a different person. So just keep getting different people until you get someone that doesn't, until you get me. Okay? Once you get me, and I hate doing this, and I'm not a hard negotiator, then you're going to get the lowest settlement possible. So that absolutely is a thing. And the older the debt, the better. And like, you can save yourself a lot. Now, one thing though is that if you settle an account, it's going to not look as good as if you pay it in full. So if you're going for like the maximum amount of like improvement to your credit, you're going to want to pay it in full because that'll shows paid in full on there rather than settled in full. But the most important thing is make sure you don't put it on your credit when it was already off. Because like if you pay an account that's not on your credit anymore, now it's going to be on your account, and that could totally tank your credit. So it's a huge trap. But yeah, absolutely, you can save money doing that. The other thing though is you can also just do what everybody does and just pay $25 a month. Then you're technically on a payment plan, and like then they're reporting the payments to your credit at least. And they might try to bother you or whatever, call you every once in a while, but at least then you're paying. And, that's what a lot of people would do. But that's how people would kind of make money. If you've been doing it for 10 years, well, you got a lot of, they call it, you got the post-dated checks built up, right? So now like you're already halfway to your goal. Sometimes the payment plan was good because if they pay in full, that's like good for that month. Yeah. But like if you want to really establish yourself, if you can get people to pay, $200-$300 a month, and you have a whole list of people doing that, well, now like you're making $4,000 right from the jump. Yeah. So if you're a certain kind of person, debt collecting is an amazing. Christy's best friend, who I used to work with, that's how I met her. She is still a debt collector, and she's making a shitload of money, like doing business debt collection. So she'll call businesses who like owe loans and stuff. And so like debt collection is a good job if you can just put your head down and do it. Then you can get it done. But like I would spend so much time at the vending machine, just like trying to spend as much time as possible picking out what kind of chips I want. That's how I kept myself sane.
So explain to me why it's important to save the receipts, because you said you would touch on that later. Yeah,
so some of this debt is so old that it's just been, so you know how like ancient civilizations, like the Native Americans, they didn't keep written record. It was just all verbal.
On stone too. Though.
Yeah, or just they have an oral tradition. Yeah. That's how a lot of debt is. After it's old enough, it's no longer written. It's just oral tradition. It's just basically, it is passed down from company to company, and they say this person owes it, but there's no documentation. So like you keeping receipts is great because a lot of times these companies do not have documentation. Because like think about this chain of events. If you're getting calls from a debt collector, like you got it like from a debt collector where they'll pass it back to the original company once it's paid, once it's back in good standing. But a lot of times, like what I was doing is I was collecting on charged off debt. So we collected on Target cards, for instance, right? So you would go to Target, you would open up a card, and then you would not pay it. Now you owe Target. Then eventually Target says, fuck it, he's not going to pay. Let's cut our losses. So we're going to charge off the account so you can't use the card anymore. We're going to sell it to some other company who is going to pay us maybe 30% of the balance because they think that they can collect 100%. Gotcha. So that's a 70% margin. Okay. So there's this company, their entire business is they buy debt and then they try to collect more than what they paid for it. Gotcha. So this company, one is called LVNV Funding LLC. It's a big one. They do a lot of like credit card debt and stuff like that. So they'll buy huge portfolios. That company will then outsource it to a debt collection company. So that debt collection company will get a percentage, and then that debt buyer will do a percentage, right? And everyone's just hoping that they make more than they're paying for it. So when I'm calling you, I'm calling on behalf of our client, LVMV Funding. So if I say you owe $400 to LVMV Funding LLC, you say, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of that in my life. And it's like, oh, well, it looks like back in 2013, we opened up this Target card and you owe $218 on it. And you're like, I don't remember doing that. It was 10 years ago. And it's one of those things probably where you were going through a Kohl's checkout line. And they're like, oh, do you want to save 20% today? And you're like, yeah, fuck it, why not? You open it up. A lot of people don't even realize you open up a credit card, right? And then they just forget about it. And then 10 years later, you get a call. The records don't really get passed down from Macy's to LVMV Funding to the potentially another company just like that who just bought the portfolio from them. And then it gets sent to a debt collector, then another one and another one and another one. Like, the records don't exist. So like, you can totally put a halt on the debt collection by asking for proof of this debt. And a lot of the times I'd be like, he wants proof of the debt. It would never show up because like it doesn't exist. So like, you could probably, sue them. You could probably sue them and be like, well, show me proof that I owe this debt, and they wouldn't be able to do it. And then it would just be like wiped clean. So you can because you can dispute the debt, and then automatically they can't collect on it for like 30 days or whatever. And so you can kind of save yourself that way. But you'd be surprised at how little documentation is out there. Now, sometimes a lot of people dispute it just to like buy themselves time, just to fuck with you, because like obviously they owe it. But like, a lot of times we were collecting on debt that probably was like bogus, or at the very least, there's literally no proof this ever existed. Some of it was pure criminal. There was one time that I did feel immoral, and it was this company that financed furniture. And so it'd be like, if you go to like a home furniture or whatever, and you want to you need a mattress because like you need somewhere to sleep, right? You need a mattress. Well, they'll be like, well, you can't afford a mattress because you don't have however much it costs. Well, they'll be like, oh, well, we'll finance for you. We always approve people. Well, they try to go through all the reputable banks. You can't get approved because you have no credit. Yeah. So they'll just give you a loan. And it is like the most insane. It was like damn near 100% interest.
Absolutely. Payday loan.
So I'd be like, yeah, you owe $4,200 for a 2-seater couch? And they'd be like, yeah, I'm not paying that. I'd be like, I don't blame you. Yeah, Yeah. And so everyone was talking like, I don't even know if we should be collecting on this stuff. This is like, this is murder. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's definitely a shady world, and it's like.
So do you think when I brought up the receipts thing, do you think she was kind of taken aback for a second? Like, oh crap, like, how are we going to get around this type of thing? Or is it like, do you think she?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sure she. I'm sure she wanted to hear you out. I mean, I think at those companies, because they work for the main company, yeah, it's a little bit different. They probably have a higher standard.
Okay.
It's not someone that, like, they could actually call the company and figure it out. We couldn't do that.
I think she did.
Yeah. There's no way that I could call, like, I couldn't call up Macy's and be like, oh, yeah, can you check into this for me? There was, no, like, you just had to take my word for it. And if I couldn't convince you, then that was it,
That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
That's an interesting world. I mean, it's crazy to think. It's crazy to think that you guys have, or I should say you had, because you used to work there. But like, I don't know how people can, like you said, do that on a day-to-day basis. When Dave Ramsey said that, I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, you're telling me that they're gonna settle for something like that? But he's like, yeah. He's like, you got cash today for this? And he's like, if you tell them, I will today.
Oh, here's the tip. Like, if you want to settle, you settle. If it's 31 days in the month, you call on the 30th, because that's everyone's crunching to meet their goal, dude. Okay. That girl had a goal. All right.
Yeah, and I think she called me on like the 25th or something like that, 26th.
Yeah.
So
because that's when in the last week, like that's when the career guys, they're working overtime. Yeah. Like they're trying to get it done, and if you get a guy, you want to get the guy on the phone that hasn't hit his goal yet, and it's the 30th, okay? And he's just looking for anything. Like, that's when you get the best settlement offers. That's when you get the most desperation. Because if you call on the 1st, they got all month. They'll wait it out, Yeah. But on the 30th, you get that money.
So, what was interesting was, when I was so perplexed because I'm like, joke's on you, man. Like, this, not possible. If you knew who I was as a person, it's not possible. Like, you have the wrong number. Like, something's going on. Thankfully, it was just like a computer issue or whatever happened on that end. But what I find interesting is, why are they? So she called me like 2 weeks after the due date. So, I mean, that would be considered a very new thing, right? Or do you go off the date of the loan start that it started? You know what I mean? So if the loan started in 2022, is that considered 3-year debt?
No. It's like, it's however long since it's been charged off or whatever and like sent to collection. Okay. And I don't know how like that type of collections works where it's like brand new, because it's all going to be new to them. Yeah. But like it's based off of when it was charged off, like when it was sent to collection. So the longer, because if it's been sent, because if you're the 5th collection agency, that's called Quint, okay? So that's Quint business, and it's been around 5, and that's like the bottom of the barrel. But if you collect one, you can make a lot of money, like and I forgot how the commission structure was, but like, you can make thousands of dollars in commission every month, doing this. Yeah. And sometimes like they would pretty much stop everything on the floor and they'd be like, Randy, he just collected $30,000 debt. Everyone would be like, Randy, dude, like, yeah, it was amazing.
It kind of reminds me when you were explaining how they make money, the businesses. It reminds me of mortgage companies selling your mortgage, like to other companies, right? So like they want to make money off of you, so they'll buy your mortgage to either hope you miss payments or that your payments are going to go up or some type of, so they can continue to get more money. So that's what I thought of, because the first year I had my house, I think I jumped 3 or 4 times. And then the 4th company that bought out my mortgage, I'm still with. So I know the longer they age, the less likelihood that your company is going to change. Is that correct? Does that sound right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like the mortgage side is a little bit less shady. I mean, that's just like an investment. I mean, then you're getting into like, mortgage-backed securities, like when they bundle all that stuff together. It is kind of similar, but that's more of like a long-term investment for them. So like, it was kind of interesting is whenever the interest rates were like super low, that stuff, like, it's probably not going to get bought quite as much because like companies kind of want to hang on to that debt because that's 3%. They know that people are not going to default on that debt ever. Like anybody has a 3% payment, the chances that they're going to default and like miss their payments and stop paying is extremely low. So like that's an incredibly safe investment.
So you get up in that 8 or 9%.
Now people are going to start like defaulting more, and so like it's going to be I guess harder for them to sell. But so I feel like it's a little bit less shady. The reason that your mortgage company sells your debt is because you got your mortgage through like an independent mortgage company. Yeah. Probably what was it, Loan Depot? Yeah, so Loan Depot, they don't have that much money, okay? They have enough money to like give the loan. That's why like the loan officers are called like loan originators, okay? So they give you the initial loan, but they don't have enough money in the bank to keep your loan on file. They just gave you $300,000. Yeah. They want to sell more loans, and they can't do that. They're not going to wait 30 years to get your money back. So they'll sell it to Wells Fargo or some other investor, and now they'll get their $300,000 back, and they can go give a loan to somebody else. And they're just making money off of a little bit of the commission that they get for that deal and whatever the margins are on that back end. So that's why that happens. If you get your loan through Wells Fargo to begin with, there's a much higher chance that they're going to actually hold on to that debt and not pass it around as much because they actually have the resources to hang on to that debt. So that's why that happens. Wow. Yeah. Is there anything else I want to talk about with this debt collection thing? Oh yeah, one thing that kind of kept you entertained as a debt collector is like, if you got one person that like just pissed you off, in addition to calling their entire family, like I would just call them every day. Like I'd have some people that like for the entire time I worked at a company, I call them every single day, and you can call them 3 times a day only. So I'd make sure I called them 3 times a day, and I would like call their mom and their sister and their job. Like just I'd try to be as annoying as possible, even if I knew that they were never gonna pay, just to fuck with them. Like that was what kept you going. That's the only thing that entertained me at this job, bro. But it's just, it takes a certain kind of person to just show up to that job every day. Christy hates her job right now. And it's just she's on the phones, and she's doing customer service. So it's slightly less, it's slightly less antagonistic than being a debt collector, but it's just, you're just on the phones all day and she just hates it. And she's like, you just don't understand how much I hate it. I'm like, it would be the same as if I went back to debt collecting right now. I would hate my life. Like, there's no way I could do that. I don't know how people can just, for their entire life, work at a call center.
How much, like, legitimately, I mean, could you make 160, 175 a year doing debt collecting?
Yeah, I bet you could. Yeah, I mean, you'd really have to be killing it. Now, I do think that over time, commissions are going down in debt collecting. Just like how you used to be able to say a lot. So it kind of is declining in multiple ways. Number one, the way that you can talk to people. The reason it's so regimented now is because every time somebody gets sued, you have to read another disclosure. Like every once in a while, they'd be like, all right, listen up, everybody. Now we got to say this disclosure, or we got to say this thing exactly like this now. Otherwise, we can get sued. So like over time, it just gets harder and harder to talk like a real person. And then the other thing is every debt collection company that I ever worked with, everything started out great. You got the career guys, they're making lots of money. But then one day you show up to work, you sit down at your desk, and the air is just different. Like people aren't really talking. Like there's this air of like doom, okay? And you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah, what?
And then they call a meeting for all the big dogs, all right? All the guys that like are the money makers, they call all them into a meeting, and then those guys come back and they're just pissed. And you can just tell like they're just not happy with whatever news they just received. And it's because something with their money. They just fucked with their money. They're not going to make as much as they used to. Well, for whatever reason, every company would decide that they need to take money away from the big guys and kind of distribute it to some of the small people. Exactly. So, they always go communist. And then after a couple of years, they're out of business. Every collection company I ever worked for does not exist anymore.
Funny how that works.
Yep. And I don't know why they would do it, but it seemed like there's just something with how the business is working where there's just less money to be had. And maybe that's just the way of the road for collection companies, where eventually they just die off and go out of business. But they are all out of business now. And I feel like you just can't make as much now. Christy's best friend, that company's out of business now. So she's having to find another company. And it just seems like there's just not as much opportunity out there. She just was in a really good position. She was killing it and making good money. But I just don't think that the commission plans are as generous at every company now. If they'll give you a base pay, you'll make like maybe $15 an hour, like $19 an hour or whatever. And then you get a little bit of commission on top. It seems like it's easier to make commission, but you don't make as much. That's kind of the direction that they would all end up going to, which is too bad because like it's a great opportunity. But then again, any sales job is, if you can collect debt, you can do anything, bro. Almost all of those guys that were really successful at debt collection are now in real estate. Like me and Hayden, who we met doing debt collection, he's a loan officer now and I'm a realtor. We were doing an open house one day and this guy walks in the door and we're like, it's Darren from Frontline. We're like, what's up, dude? And he's a realtor now and like, and we're in real estate, and so like that seemed to be the way to go. Because it's way easier to deal with people. If you're willing to make those calls, you could much rather make those calls to people that want to buy houses where you can help them instead of having to shake them down. They're people just tell you about their medical issues. They're on their last toe, and you want $50 a month from them.
They're losing their feet.
Yeah, some people love telling you about their medical problems, bro.
You don't have to tell me. I hear it.
Dude, you're gonna love this, bro. Some of these people's names, like you got to see everyone's names and like trying to figure out how to say them, was always fun.
Does it tell you male or female too?
I don't know. Okay. I'm not sure if it does. Okay. But one of the name I'll always remember now, I think is the longest name that I've ever seen. It didn't even fit on the screen. Baramuradhan Rajasekaran.
Are you kidding?
I wanted so bad to get that. He never answered. Yeah. Baramuradhan Rajasekaran.
Right? Like Bob or something.
Raj. I don't know.
How long was it? Like 17 words? Or letters?
Well, I don't know however many that is. Okay. Baramuradhan Rajasekaran. Yeah. That's his first and last name. But, like, I wanted so bad to get the guy on the phone. Like, I'd call him every day to try to get. I just wanted to say it.
Sure.
But never was able to. Anything else you're curious about from that career, bro?
That was super cool to, like, learn about. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's cool to see, like, that different side of things because you do hear, like, and like you said, a lot of it's probably fading out because of lawsuits. But, yeah, I mean, back in the 90s, early 2000s, like, they're calling in. They're like, bro, I'm gonna kidnap your child if you don't give me, like, $10,000 today.
Well, I think people used to show up, like, at your door. Like, you would get debt collectors, like, knocking at your door and, like, stuff like that. Yeah, but this, I don't know. It's very, you can barely do anything nowadays. Yeah. And, yeah, I'd never go back to that. I don't know. I mean, I guess, I don't know if I took anything from that experience other than I just liked the people a lot, especially in Chicago. Chicago was interesting. I was the only white person in the entire company, except for the owners. The owners were white, and then everybody else was black and Mexican. And that was a different, I don't know, that's just how it was. I don't know. But it was, that was a fun time. I tried my first Hennessy. And, dude, those company parties were fucking lit, bro. So, dude. Oh, shit, man. Like, people would just be grinding on each other and twerking and stuff. Like, it was hilarious. I fucking loved that company. That was great. Man, that was awesome. I love those people. Those were, like, you make real friends as a debt collector. Any other company you work for, everyone's just, like, you can't even trust them because they're just so corporate. Yeah. But not a debt collection company. You can be yourself there.
So to kind of pivot off of, like, Chicago, where is, like, or what for you was the best food scene out there? Like, what for you
I wish that I would have explored more food there. Like, I'm sure there's some amazing stuff I missed out on. However, the street food was way better than here. Like, so I worked downtown in, like, the financial district. Yeah. So it was, like, just the big corporate area. And you could just go, and there was just food trucks everywhere. So, like, you would just go, and I would be getting lobster rolls, and there's a couple, like, staples of Chicago. Number one is Harold's Chicken, okay? I would love to see Harold's Chicken come to Minnesota, bro. So I get it off the food truck, but, like, if you go down to, like, south side, like, in the ghetto areas, then you can actually go to the locations, right? But they'll give you, like, wings, fried good wings or whatever, on top of a piece of Texas toast. And then they would just, like, drizzle the hot sauce in there. And it was just, like, fucking delicious. You just eat it out of a box, just, like, and I would just have lunch, man, just sitting, like, on stairs of, like, some of the common areas and, like, just, like, these, like, plazas and stuff down there were just really relaxing to sit in. And everyone would just be sitting eating their food truck food. I go down and, like, have lunch with my dad in Minneapolis. Sometimes we get food off the food truck, and it's just nothing like it is over in Chicago. Like, there's some really good options there. And then the other one is, I think it's called Garrett's Popcorn. I could be wrong on that, but there's a popcorn brand that's famous down there too, and it's, like, just delicious ass popcorn. I made sure to take some with me when I left.
And of course the pizza, right?
Well, so I didn't. So you always talk to me about, you're like, you got to go to Geno's, all right? Geno's East, man. Yeah. And I lived I lived a block away from Geno's North. Okay. I never tried it. What did I have? I had Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza was the one that I always went to, and anytime that I had company, we would go there. But I think that's even though I think it's fucking delicious with their butter crust or whatever they call it. But I think that people that live in Chicago would think that that's, like, a tourist trap, like, hack kind of place. Like, I think that that's not, like, a real beloved pizza place there. I don't know what is, but I thought that was good deep dish pizza. And I had this really good Italian place too. I'd go sometimes, like, I would get this like seafood soup. It had like baby octopuses in there and shit. Like it was, it was fucking great. So it had some good food,
That's
but
savage, dude. Baby octopi.
well, I actually recently had that over at a place called J-Pod over in Maplewood, and I'm going there for my birthday again with my family because it's a hot pot place.
Okay.
And so they give you like you have your own soup broth. And there's a bunch of different soup broths you can get, but I got like a spicy Szechuan one. And then they have this menu. It's all you can eat, and they have so many different things you can get. It's all different cuts of meat. So there's, beef, different cuts of beef, chicken, pork, lamb, all that. And then also you had all these seafood options. So you can just get like shrimp or whitefish. I was having like crayfish, baby octopus again. And it's
eat the babies. That's what you're like. I just
yeah.
food.
Yeah, I like adult octopus too, but they're like it's literally whole octopus, so it's like a whole thing. Yeah, and but it's I don't know. I love octopus, and you don't really. I'm sure they clean them in some way. It doesn't taste like guts or anything like that. It is weird looking, but it's delicious. And that's when I first had it was back then. But at this J-pop place, they didn't have the beaks. They had beaks at this Italian place that I went to. But I wish I would have taken more advantage of the food. In my particular area that I lived over in Edgewater, which is like, it's very top north of Chicago. Like, if I went any farther north, I would not be in Chicago anymore.
You'd be in like Wisconsin.
No, it was called, I forgot what the place directly north of Chicago is called, but that was like the next town over. So I was like almost all the way north, and there was a couple places to eat, but like nothing super amazing. I had like a Korean chicken wing place that was good. I had this one place that was kind of just basic. It had like burgers and stuff like that, but I would go there a lot. And back then, bro, like I didn't go grocery shopping, so I would go out to eat it for every single meal. Imagine how much fucking money I spent.
Oh my!
Like I didn't go grocery shopping for 6 months. I would either like sometimes I would just have like Cheetos for dinner or whatever, but like I would go buy something every time. And so I must have spent, dude, I would cringe looking at that bank account. I started with $20,000 when I went there in my bank account, and then I left pretty much broke because I spent it all.
You were out there for like 2 years?
Probably more like 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's not. Well, but you were making
But yeah, making money. Yeah,
okay,
I spent in excess 20 grand. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay.
And it was just like by myself. I wasn't really doing anything crazy,
Yeah.
But like I just would spend so much money on food. And I think if I was going to spend that much, I could have made more out of that. Because like there was no good pizza around me, bro. It was like there was that Geno's. I never really had that. It was like, yeah, like if I was having pizza in Chicago, I was having Pizza Hut. And it was just like, yeah, not what I should have been doing, Yeah, I don't know. We didn't really talk too much about Chicago, more the debt collecting, but I think that was really interesting. But I don't know. Most of the time in Chicago, I was working, and then I was just fucking playing video games the rest of the time, just chilling. And that was pretty much it. But
cool.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about it again. We can talk about my weed dealer, who was a homeless man named Fox. Just the homeless people in general was one of the most remarkable things there. But yeah, there's more we can talk about with Chicago. But yeah that was all right. And we're gonna talk about Zelensky too, but we're out of time, so we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right. Well, thanks for watching, and I guess if you made it this far, like and subscribe, and see you next time.